Yes, you will get married. Yes, you will have a partner. Yes, you will grow up and get to be in those beautiful big homes. But that tiny apartment that you set up, the things that you do, the alarm that wakes you up in the morning, the showers that you take, the way you go to work, the way you work weekends and weeknights because you're single, the way you excel in your job because, you just want to prove so much. I think it's very, very important for any child to have that discovery of self. Everybody will have their own story. People are not going to talk about the vehicle that they bought. I'm going to talk about the vehicle because it is a second-hand Maruti 800, okay? It's the cheapest car on the block, but it was my car. There is this movie called Pursuit of Happiness. Have you seen it? I want every child to see it. So there is a dance that the guy does when he gets his job. I think I cry and cry when I see that. I felt exactly like him when I got my first job. I said, you speak with so much knowledge and with so much passion about something that is so boring, right? Why are you not doing it for yourself? It was always my dad's dream that, we start up a firm, and my husband too. If you have that kind of energy, if you have that kind of zeal, and you have that kind of desire and the frustration, I think in my 2.0 version of being in US, the frustration and anger of not being able to be where I am played such a big part. There is a fine line between I don't know to I know now. You cannot give up. If you work hard in your capacity, this is the hardest I can work, you will get it. This is the beauty of this capitalist economy, is that you work hard and it will kill you, but you will make it. There is no standardized way of doing it. And so you have to carve your own way out. You have to unblur your own path.
Today on Unblur the Path, we meet Pooja Srivastav, a tax professional and founder of a boutique tax firm in Northern California. Her journey spans banking across organizations, a major career reset after moving to United States, and ultimately building her own practice in taxation. So let's welcome Pooja. Hi, Pooja. Welcome to Unblur the Path. I'm very excited to have you and to understand your journey to becoming an entrepreneur in taxation. I welcome you with whole heart.
Hi, Lakshmi. Look forward to contributing to your podcast. I'm very excited to be here. And hopefully, someday some child would look at this podcast and choose finance as their career.
Yes, that's the aim we have today, isn't it? So, before we dive into your journey, I would like you to tell our listeners what you are currently working as, and you can go into the details of.
So I have a small firm. It's a boutique firm based out of the northern part of California, and it is called Two Cherry Tax. It is specifically tailored for small companies, individuals with complex assets, and I also help set up these companies, and that's about it.
Wonderful. I guess from this, what we can simply understand that you are in the world of finance. And that's a very, very important world to be in. So, when you were a young child, how did you think that you have to enter the world of finance? What made you get into this?
This is a very tough question because I don't think you ever ask a child who's raised in an army background, where did you learn to be patriotic? You never ask a person who's a doctor's child, when did you learn about paracetamol, Calpol? And I think my story is the same. I don't think there was a day I decided to be in finance. It was a part of me while growing up. My dad was in finance, and our family, the way we think, everything we do is finance. And just to give you a little anecdote, because you asked me, I was 6 years old and I couldn't hold the newspaper. So back then, when you're that young, there are no apps. There are no, where you can scroll stuff. And if you had to look at a number of a stock and what's the pricing of the stock, you had to look at a newspaper. It was called Economic Times. and was larger than I was. So I used to sit on the newspaper, and even when I didn't know how to spell pharmaceutical or manufacturing, I used to look for the pricing for my dad. So I have that visual of me sitting on top of the newspaper, trying to figure out what's the price of a particular stock on a particular day. And he bought that stock. And I don't think I understood what is finance. I did not understand what is the price of a stock. But when I looked at his expression, I knew he did well on a particular stock. And that's how my journey of finance, of money, of economics, of marketing began. And yeah, that's the story.
That's quite early. That's quite young to be, looking into economic times and, trying to look for stock and its value on that particular day. That's quite a young age from even today's times. Even kids, I don't know, haven't come across a kid at 6 years old looking into paper like that. That's very intriguing. So, how did it convert into a passion and a choice for you to enter into the financial studies?
I think it happened very organically. I was very, very inclined to accounting as the subjects unfolded in high school. I did take computer science as one of, because at that time it was new to study computer science. And so I did study C++ at one point in time. I did study economics. I loved economics. I'd seen so much of economics at home. I mean, by the time I was 14, we used to have a monthly balance sheet of our house. We used to have a small income and outgoing, and we used to plan. Oh, my dad used to remove the zeros and used to say, okay, we have 70 coming in and we have 20 going out and we have 4 of rent and this and that. So what do we do if we need a vacation? So the child is slowly learning at home, and then you're exposed to these subjects in high school. I loved it. I loved how accounting came into being. I wasn't a very good test taker. I was always the smartest kid and with the smartest gang of kids, but I don't know what would happen. I wasn't a very great test taker, but I would love to completely drench myself in the subjects that I studied. And I think I really liked economics, accounting. And of course, as it progressed, you finish your high school and then you need to get into undergrad. And it was a natural progression to get into marketing was a major subject. Accounting was a major subject. Economics was a major subject. I also fell in love with marketing at one point in time. I kind of read that book, Peter F. Duck, and then you're reading Maslow's theory, and then you're reading about how people react when somebody, launches something, how advertising impacts people. What are the front runners? So very small things, they appeal to you as a child. And I think it's very, very important at that early age, rather than seeing what everybody else is doing, rather than, oh, my best friend's taking like maybe English or science or physics. Rather than that, what really appeals to you. And I know that in this age and time, it's very difficult to understand it that early. But I think because I inherently was exposed to those subjects and I naturally took to them, it just became the next thing that I wanted to do. Yeah.
And this is very unique that I see that you were making a balance sheet of your home economics. I have never heard of that. Of course, people do keep their own track of how the money is inflowing and outgoing, but making a balance sheet, that's very unique. So my next question to you would be about when you were in your school, like the 11th and 12th standards, you already decided on the subjects that you are taking forward. For your graduate program, what is it that you finally decided on, and what was the process of getting into the college of your liking?
Okay. There are a few things. And with finance, I'm sure it's the same with others. You have to have a basic degree of a particular subject where by the end of your undergraduate program, you'll say, I excel in ABC. These are my subjects. And then there is also pieces of licensing that will come through. As you move into it, do you want to be in a management role? For a person who's in finance that early, you either get into banking or you get into something where you're into accounting. And accounting is huge. It's not just a little piece. It's huge. There are different kinds of accounting. Or you get into an MBA program. And these are typically the broader areas that you have in accounting that you can get into. And so choosing a college is very important because it gives you a launch pad. So if you have a good brand name, and I think this anybody would say, it just becomes easier to get that first job. It also gives you a lot of exposure in terms of what faculties you have, because the best college will attract a lot of good faculties. And that right there, if you have a great teacher and a great mentor, you will fall in love with your subjects a little bit more. And it is very, very important for someone like me to love what they do rather than just do it because, this is going to be a really high paying job at the end of. I never thought of, even though I come from a place where money was what, was taught to me, passion was always a very, very big part. So when you go and choose a college, branding is very important. Again, for me, it was location. My parents were abroad and I had to come to India and study. So again, location was very important. Bangalore at that time was supposed to be a very, very safe city for girls to live alone and start their career as a young women. So that was another thing. Also, what you do in college, right? A lot of who you are, a lot of, apart from your educational piece, will come out in these college years. You will do theater, you'll do music, you'll do college festivals, you'll lead the way. I remember organizing a lot of festivals in my college where a lot of sponsorships were required. So, right from the get go, how do you go into a place, ask for money, set up? So, it's also this, it's not the most important thing, but I think for me, it really worked very well. I went to a college called Mount Carmel College in Bangalore. It is a very, very reputable college. And I think whatever I am today is a mix of a professional person with a little bit of color, with a little bit of passion, is because of my undergrad years. And so I think it's very important.
Okay. And like you mentioned, your parents were abroad and you moved to India to pursue your undergrad program.
Yeah.
How was it like? Staying away from your parents, moving to a different country, of course, your country of origin, but then a different country from where your parents were. How was it for you?
The first semester is hard. I wouldn't say it's easy. Even though as a rebellion teenager, you're like, okay, I'm going to start my own. I'm going to be away from home. This is the first time. The first semester is always, always hard. It's just getting used to it, getting your own bank account. You get a phone. And I remember we used to have a Nokia 3310. I'm dating myself now. That was the first phone that was ever a phone that you could get. And all of those things, those little things where suddenly you are your parents, but you're also now a young woman who has responsibilities. And so you like it, yes, but there's a lot of caution that comes with it. Okay, can I do this? Because every day there's somebody to tell you, hey, now wake up. Now this is breakfast time. Now you do this. Now, then suddenly you're on your own. The leash is off. And it's hard. You miss home, you miss your parents, you miss the kitchen food, you miss the familiarity. But by the second and the third semester, I was in it and I had my own friends. I think it helps a lot for any child who steps out of home. You're lucky if you make them in day one, your friends. A group of people that are like minded, a set of people that you can call your own. That is a safe space for you at the end of your day at college or your undergraduate program or wherever you are pursuing vocational degrees, that you have somebody to come back to. And that really helped. And so I had a great group of friends. And yeah, I was in the hostel with 250 women. Fun.
That's so much fun for sure.
Yeah.
So, like, once you were there, you started your studies. So, and I'm sure this is very interesting phase with all the friends and, newfound freedom that is different than staying at home with your parents. How was, the whole course like? I would like to understand the subjects that you took in and how was navigating the course in your graduate program.
So the undergraduate programs in India are very, if you compare it from the rest of the world, are very standardized. So when you get in, you have a set of, subjects that are set up. And especially for people who do commerce, I'm sure it's changed a little bit now, but there isn't like every year you can choose what you want. You do have those specific subjects that you need to master. The end of the third year, you did have a choice to kind of take, I'm forgetting what it was, whether it was majoring in English or higher accounting class or something, but I took marketing in the final year. I was fascinated by it. I loved it. Marketing and accounting and economics. I think the world cannot function without these three subjects. Like you can be a doctor, but you have to know economics. There's no way you can escape it. You can be a scientist, you have to know accounting because I'm not saying you need to know your debits and credits, but you need to know what's happening to the money that you're creating, right? It's very important. So you can't escape it. So these three were, I think, the subjects that I studied. I wasn't the top of my class, but I really liked going to class. The subjects that I didn't like, strangely, were tax and business law, which were very boring, very boring. I remember actually, and they, I don't know, for some reason, they used to be after lunch. And so I do remember always moving from the front to the last bench because business law and tax, as I studied much later and will unfold, was taught very differently. And that's again going back to where I started. If you have a subject that you love, it's awesome. If you have a teacher or a mentor that can take you through that subject in those 3-4 years, I mean, your understanding of it. And sometimes, you're not that lucky. So I think maybe I didn't really like those subjects then because I wasn't, I wasn't there. Yeah, but I liked everything about the undergrad program. And right out of the undergrad program, I then moved to a master's program right in India.
Okay. So, in your undergrad program, were there any challenges that you came across? And if so, how did you overcome them? Which soft skills helped you to basically overcome these challenges?
I don't remember a time where I was struggling with anything in accounting, or I don't remember anything that I struggled with. I think it's the most beautiful phase of my life. I maneuvered through subjects, I maneuvered through life. I was growing up. There was so much happening at the same time to this one person, but I enjoyed everything. I mean, if I stress enough, I might find a day where I was like, maybe didn't like the food at the mess, and that's all. And it was an easy fix to just go across the road and get good food. But the only struggle that I remember as, as a 18, 19-year-old was like, oh my God, the food in the mess is bad tonight. And we were like, okay, we're going to go and get some nice spicy food across it. But I don't remember anything being hard in my life at that age. Especially now when you've been through the whole circle of life, you're like, I don't remember. It was a cakewalk. Yeah. Yeah.
So, while you were learning finance, how were you managing your own personal finance in a new city?
Very nice question. Very badly. Very, very badly. I think I spent money a lot on food, on clothes. Back in the day, thank God we didn't have Instagram and Sephora. Otherwise, I would have been that girl. But I did spend a lot, and my dad sent me a lot of money. When I think of it now, I think every month he would send me money, and my mom would be like, "Why are you sending her this much money? What is she doing there?" But I did. I think if there was a challenge that I could, now that you say that, is what kind of would be not spending money, not eating out, not spending money on clothes, not spending money on movies. Oh yeah, I wasn't. Maybe that would have been a challenge. Yeah. So, and every time I send him a little note, and I created a little profit and loss statement at the end of the month, and I drew a line, and I told him this much came in and this much I spent, and everything would it'll down to a zero, so I need more. So I did send him letters every time saying that this is how I spend it, but it was bad. Yeah.
That's so much fun, even to listen. I can imagine those conversations between you and your dad. So, your next natural question that I have, that how did you decide to get into masters instead of looking for a job opportunity right after the graduation?
Yeah, I think undergraduate programs, especially in accounting, they prepare you just enough. Especially in my time, if I wanted to start, I would have started as something administratively, which you would anyways otherwise start. But then you would need something more intense, like an intense program to give you that extra skill because it's a 3-year degree. Okay. By the time you come out, you're like 20, 21. You have a control of the subject, but you're not a master in it. So the natural progression at that time for me was either to do an MBA finance, or kind of take another degree that gives you a master's. In India, it's also called a PGDBA. It's a postgraduate diploma equivalent to a master's program. A very interesting thing happened, and I don't know if this might be relevant to kids at this time. The Indian government was privatizing the entire banking and insurance in India in 2002. And what it did was 90% of the European companies, Singapore companies, US companies, they all came to India. So what you see now as a Max New York, what you see now as the International Netherlands Group, what you see now is, any Deutsche or whatever, all these things were not there. It was central. Everything was centralized, it was governed by RBI. So suddenly that year, when I was looking for programs, I was like, well, why don't I do something that's going to prepare me for this huge privatization that's happening in our country rather than just doing the normal. And so I found this unique course. It was a 1.5 year program. It was, again, a finance and risk management. So the master's is in risk management and finance. If you ask me, did I choose risk management as my master's? No, I didn't. At that time, I was too, very new to understanding that. But I knew that the insurance field in India is going to privatize. And so insurance and risk management go hand in hand. And whatever I studied, at the back of my head, there was always a thing like, what job am I going to get out of this? So I thought that I would become extremely marketable and one of the multinationals that came in. And so that's how I did the next coursework, which was it was an extensive, it was very, very fast paced. But then again, it was insurance, risk management, finance, and again, statistics. A lot of statistics was there, actuarial science. There's a lot of other things that I got exposed to there. And yeah, and within 1.5 years, I was job ready. Yeah.
Okay. But I'll take you a step back and try and understand how did you do your research and build your clarity about, that this is where you want to go, and then pin down a college or a university to get into.
So there are these, the standard colleges that you have, the top 20 MBA institutes that I had applied to. I got into some of them as well. Sometimes I feel like I should have gone to a bigger brand. But as I got through those applications, we were going through, my dad and I actually, there's a huge piece of this that I attribute to my dad. One of the professors that we were talking to regarding one of the programs in America, he said that we are setting up a brand new operation in Hyderabad. And we have this new institute that's coming up and that's going to prepare students for insurance and risk management and stuff. And that's how I think when the professor reached out and the way he positioned the college, and this was all while we were researching. It's not like I went looking out for something. I think it just called out to me, where my dad was like, do you want to just apply to this? Maybe, you don't have to just apply to this. And then they just need a simple TOEFL, I think we had, and a written exam. It wasn't a very extensive exam. So just see if this works. And I got through, and I went to the institute. I met a lot of the professors. I think the professors had a lot of, a lot to do with my intention to go there, because all the professors were returning professors from US, Indians who were setting up a new institute. And when I spoke to them, I was like, oh my God, this is how we're going to learn. It's a new way of learning. It wasn't the way that we had learned things back at home. So I think I was really mesmerized by what's going to happen and the future it holds. So that's how I think that happened. Yeah.
Okay. So what was this degree called?
It's called International Masters in Risk Management and Finance.
Okay.
So,
that's a very interesting degree.
It was very interesting. And I was like, I'll be done in 1.5 years, while most of the other friends that I had were taking a drop year, were doing some jobs and, trying to figure out what they want to do, still not sure. A lot of girls had gone to this BPOs at that time. A lot of girls had gone into advertising, and I was like, hey, you know what? While I'm gonna nail it. So I think I also was feeling very kicked about that I've figured out what I want in life, not knowing what the years in later, and we'll go into it later. It's like, I'm going to be working by the time I'm 22.5. Like, what are these people thinking? Like, what are they doing? Still haven't figured themselves out. So I think it was giving me a kick. And it did eventually pan out like that. So it wasn't like an illusion. It was well-weighed thought. I wanted to be working. I wanted to kind of be on my own. And so it happened. Yeah.
Okay. So it was a 1.5 year degree. And when is it that you got placed if you did? Or if not, how did you land your first job?
I was one of the first ones to get placed. The vice chancellor of the university referred me to, it's called International Netherlands Group. It's ING. It's even there in India right now. So they were setting up a brand new office in Bangalore. And I went and told him I want a job. I told my chancellor that even before the course ends, and I want a job. I want to start making money. And I wanted with a multinational. So he said, yeah, I have a friend. And he has a friend. And this is how back then LinkedIn is not there. Nothing's there. You have to go back and they have something and they have a connection. And the guy who's the vice president is a batchmate of something. And I'm like, whatever it is, I'm going to go to Bangalore. I was in Hyderabad. I said, I'm going to go to Bangalore. And I did this on my own. And now it seems like nothing, but I'm just 22. I'm like, okay. So I took an overnight bus because there were no reservations anywhere. And I thought I'm going to take a bus. And the next day morning, I reached the office. I had an interview. And the fun part is not that I got the job. The fun part is the interview. So the vice president, and this is for, this is like a stress test for any new person who's going into an interview who's never been interviewed before. Throughout the interview, the guy didn't lift his head up. So he had put his head down like that on a table. I was like, okay, maybe he's tired. I entered the room. He looked at me and he said, oh, so you're Pooja. I said, yeah. And so has referred me, and I just want this opportunity. And how you have that fire as like as a 21-year-old, right? You're just like, I just need to get my first job, and then he puts his head down. I can never forget. I've interviewed hundreds of times after that, but I can never forget that one because he didn't put his head up, and everything he said was a mumble under his two arms. And how intimidated do you feel? I think it must be 40 then. I'm 20. I'm like, is there something that I don't know about interviewing? The interview lasted, I think, about half an hour, the worst half an hour that I could think of. And then he put his head up and he said, oh, okay, we'll let you know if you made through. And say hi to so and so. And I'm like, I don't know who he's saying hi to because the common connection is not the guy. And I just nodded my head and I was like, yeah. And I went out and I called my friends, my professor, and the vice chancellor in that order. And I'm like, you know what, please set me up with something. When are the interviews on campus? Because the campus interviews were happening much later. And I hadn't signed up for them because I was like, I'm going to get a job. So in that order, I panicked and I said, no, this is, I should have prepared well and whatever. And so I came back, and then I think a letter, I don't know why, came to my institute as an appointment letter in about 10 days. So the appointment letter came to the institute, to the dean, I think, and he came to class and said, Pooja, I want you out of the classroom. Okay, what have I done again? And then he gives me that. And I don't remember a day. Actually, there are more days like that. No, there are more days like that. That was one of the happiest days of my life. There have been more days like that, but that was, oh my God, I think I screamed in the whole corridor. Everybody, it was a great day. Yeah.
Well, that's something to scream about for sure. And the way the interview happened, oh my God, I have never heard of an interview like that.
Yeah, he didn't put his head up.
No, that's actually funny when you're looking back, but I'm sure it was intimidating at that time. So this was when you were still pursuing your course. And towards the end, though, how was it transitioning from college life to your work life with your first offer letter in your hand? Again, a city that you had lived in, but how was it setting up yourself in a city with a job, money coming from your salary, all those feelings, the operational part of it and the emotional part of it, if we can talk about.
Yeah. So the move was easy because I was moving back from Hyderabad. It was very warm for me. Bangalore was more my weather. Moved back and I must say that Hyderabad prepared me to get into a rent agreement, to get into looking for a house. We did the same thing at Hyderabad. So that transition happened over that. Cooking for yourself, preparing a lunchbox, trying to take care of not eating at the cafeteria, to dressing up professionally, to then buying your own TV, a fridge, getting your own furniture, your curtains. I feel And I highly recommend this to every child. Yes, you will get married. Yes, you will have a partner. Yes, you will grow up and get to be in those beautiful big homes. But that tiny apartment that you set up, the things that you do, the alarm that wakes you up in the morning, the showers that you take, the way you go to work, the way you work weekends and weeknights because you're single, the way you excel in your job because, you just want to prove so much. To you, I think it's very, very important for any child to have that discovery of self, of what you want. Because in those phases, if you ask anybody else, everybody will have their own story. People are not going to talk about curtains and lunch boxes. I did, right? People are not going to talk about the vehicle that they bought. I'm going to talk about the vehicle because it was a secondhand. It is a secondhand Maruti 800, okay? It's the cheapest car on the block, but it was my car, right? I bought a black and white TV, and I'm not dating myself. We did have colored TV back then, but in that month, I thought, I'm not going to waste money. And I don't watch that much TV. What? It's been a while since I watched black and white TV. How does it matter? So I bought it for $1,000. And I'm like, dude, this is good. It's good. People, when they talk about what they did as a person who earned income for the first time, everybody is going to discover new things. And in discovering that thing, you discover yourself. What will I like as I grow up? What is it? If you talk to my husband, he is definitely not going to talk about cushions and curtains and how he did. He'll be like, no, I did great at my work. But when I talk about it, I'll talk about the relationships that I made at work. I have friends from that first job that I still talk to sometimes when I go back to Bangalore. Because those relationships were very important. It motivated me to go back to work. Then we had lunch together. Then we went out together. Then we went out in the evening together. And it also helped me understand if I didn't understand a process or if I didn't understand, one of us would be good at one thing, the other one would be good at software, the other one. So you learn from your peers too. And so you very quickly, as an individual at that age, you understand what is it that's really attracting me and that's going to keep me through my life, going to keep me engaged to my profession throughout my life. And I think that's what I had a lot of fun at ING. A lot of learning curves. Again, we're looking at 2003, 2004. These are the years where softwares are getting into the normal workforce. Files are going away. So there's a huge population at work that have never touched computers. You're working with them.
Yes.
And they don't like it. So a lot of things, a lot of processes. And I think it was a great first job for me. Yeah.
Amazing. And how do you think your undergrad program and your master's program prepared you for the work that you were doing?
Subjects, definitely it helps when you come across words, simple words. I'm not going to the jargons of it. Assets, liabilities, work in progress, whatever it is, you will see that in your everyday life. But the rigor with which you do the coursework when you're studying and you're doing coursework, with the rigor, and then you have exams coming in, then you have midterms coming in, then you have a sudden test. All this is real life. It will happen. You will be given multiple tasks at work, like multiple subjects flowing in through your day. And then one teacher will come in and give you a quiz, and the other will come and give you a test. It's the same way. A manager will come in, he'll tell you this, prioritize my stuff. And then there'll be another one, hey, Pooja, you're so good at this. Can you just take care of this? And then you're like, there are parts of your day where you're like, okay, I need to take a breath, but that is your day. And courses like these, or any profession, the way one is the content, right? You are learning a subject, you're understanding economics, or you're understanding math, English, whatever it is. That is, it makes you drench yourself into that, nicely get into it, and you're like, oh, I know how this works. And the other is taking the intensity at a workplace to deal with what's coming. And these are two very different things. You're taught this mildly at school and high school, and then at a good program, good master's program, you're taught to deal with this in a very fast-paced environment. And I think that really helped.
So if you have to explain to the listeners how your first year looked like in the job, you have touched upon it very slightly in your previous answer, but if you could give a little deeper dive into your first year, it would actually help them understand what are the challenges, what are the eases, how do you pave your way in a day around the people that you interact with?
Yeah, there will be challenges. I think one is understanding the process when you get into a job. Slowly, the management will look at you and figure out where they're going to place you. So initially, all first years will start with one particular job. Okay, this is your job. These are your people. This is your team. This is your manager. But as they see you in 6 to 7 months, they will move you if you're either really good or really bad, depending on how you are, how they perceive you. So one of the biggest things in a workplace that I feel is very important is how people perceive you. Okay, you, you get up in the morning, you're the first person to come into office. You come in, you take your coffee, you sit down, you work, you don't talk nonsense. You sit and you work hard, especially in the first few years of your career. It is very important what the perception is. I mean, sitting and watching YouTube and taking a break every 10 minutes, and you might be a great coder. Let's say you're a coding person. Amazing at your job. It takes you like 5 minutes to code, but you're really bad at the office ethics. And each office has its own ethics. The office that I went to, it was awesome to be early at work. And I was always early at work. It was very professional to include the entire team in your decision making. It was important to follow the process the way. It was a very process oriented job. You come out of the line in one of the processes and you miss the bus. So it is very important to understand that especially when you go from a young kid who's been in college to get into something that strict. I mean, there's so many facets. I don't even know what I can touch upon that will help children.
One thing that you can emphasize on here is what was your first job?
Okay. So my
Yeah.
first job was I was the liaison between the people who did the finance and all of the finance piece of an insurance company and all of the northern part of India. So I was a one point contact as my first job to know the finance piece and then to communicate this to the northern part of India. The northern part was a huge part. It was a tough part. Again, uh, I don't know if this is for a global audience or not, but the northern and the southern part of India have a very different working style and very, very different way the people work. So because I was a North Indian and I was really good at communication, they put me through the toughest branches up in the north, which included Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh. I cannot forget it because the first 2 months were very hard because they knew that there's a newbie who's coming and they would all talk to each other and say, let's give her a hard time. And until we had an office union of the sorts and they all met me in person in Bangalore and then we all became buddies and then we all did well together, we worked well. But it was a challenge because what happens in an insurance business is, let's say you want to buy an insurance today. They are going to look at Lakshmi and they're going to say, hey, Lakshmi, what is your worth? Okay, you're worth $1 million. What's going to define the worth of $1 million? They're going to do financial underwriting on you. And so that's a huge department that is there in insurance companies. And then there is the other department that is how long is Lakshmi going to live? So that is the actuarial science. Okay. So these two factors, when they are weighed together, is when Lakshmi will be given $1 million policy.
Okay.
So the actuarial department and the finance department. So I was that person who would look at these things and then communicate to the sales guys. Now, sales guys have nothing to do with finance or actuarial science or management or anything. All they want is numbers, right? So every month they want themselves to outgrow the other branches and make more numbers and more numbers in terms of how many insurance policies have they sold. So, yep. And then that is you're communicating to them that this person is neither healthy, non-financially polished to have an insurance policy. And they're like, doesn't matter. I need the policy. So it was a tough first job, which I did very well in, then got promoted within 8 or 9 months. I moved into processes, which was in the entire office. They were getting a new software and I forget the name of the software. We were the younger lot, so we were very hands-on with the computer. We had to make the entire process, which was filing, into that entire new data, some kind of database management system. Again, one was the process, the software, understanding it. The other was convincing 90% of the staff to get on it, because people who've been working 40 years on something, you cannot tell them to. So
Yeah. So, how long did you work in this organization?
I worked for a year and a half.
Okay. And what was your next move?
So the next move comes with a personal move. The next move comes with marriage on the cards, because I'd been living alone for a while in a city, and my parents were like, it's time for you to, you have everything, right? What else do you need? You should get married. So this is again 2003, 4. We're not we're not there yet. Women are not there yet to say, no, I don't want to. So I said, okay. And so the next move comes with a personal move of getting married. And so it was a time just before my marriage, and my parents thought that I should spend some time at home. So I went to Bahrain to work in Citibank. It's a bank. I worked in the NRI division. It was just simple banking. It was just before I got married. And a period of time. And yeah, that's
Okay. So, you were in Citibank in Bahrain
yeah.
and you got married. Did you make a move from some city to another?
Yeah. So then I moved back to Bangalore. When I moved back to Bangalore, worked again, got into banking. It just became the natural progression for me. Banking was very exciting. You had a lot of products, you had a lot of sales guys that were reporting to you. You had a lot of monthly targets. Every day was a new day. Again, when you enter banking, you have to be cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of licensing required. So anything that you sell, there's a licensing that's required. So you have to give a lot of exams again. Again, I think I've in my life, I think giving an exam and qualifying has been the key. I've just been doing that. So I forget how many licenses I have now, but that's again something that I did. And I went into wealth management then, dealt with very high network. And you will see that this is a very it wasn't designed like this. It has just happened because I moved back to Bahrain, and banking jobs are very easy there. Immediately, I didn't want to sit idle. So I got a job. When I was in that job, I thought, wow, banking is even better. And so that's the turn to banking. They came back to Bangalore, and I got into banking, wealth management, kept doing it, enjoying it, getting promoted, getting good titles. Banking gives you really good titles. You're a manager, VP. You are so many things in a very short time, because it's all based out of how much you're getting to the company. And the faster you progress. And yeah, so that's something that I did. And the last job, and I did multiple jobs there, was with one of the big companies. It's called Kotak Mahindra. I don't know if it's still called Kotak Mahindra or somebody's overtaken it. That was, I think, more or less coming to the end of my career in India.
Okay.
By this time, I've been married about 4 years, and we are looking at moving to the US at this time.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
while we are touching the topic of banking, I'm sure there would be listeners that would be interested in knowing the banking domain. Now, we know your education, we know that your first job was with insurance. If you can explain banking in few sentences for anyone to understand the different sectors in banking itself, it's such a huge. I think we'll need a whole podcast or a couple of podcasts to
Yeah.
discuss banking in detail. But if you can talk about it and explain what avenues one can have in a banking job, coming from a
Yeah.
finance graduation and master's.
Yeah. So, like you said, banking is huge. There's, of course, the front line that people start with, right? If you're very young, you'll start like with a teller, a cashier, to again, then the relationship manager. And these are all front facing jobs, right? Even a wealth manager is a front facing job. Then there is another side of it, which is investment banking, which is the most sought after job, I would say. I think I didn't touch on it. I wish at that time I had a thing. I'd probably go back in time, and I wanted to do a piece of investment banking, but I didn't. It's a very, very niche um, branch of banking. Again, you need an MBA to do it. It's great to have a finance background, because then you understand numbers. And then, of course, as you there will be different services within the banking, like there'd be a place for NRI services, there'll be place for loans, there'll be place for, you have to understand banks work with the money they have. So the money that comes in as a deposit that we store in a bank is, and in a layman's language, is then given out. So the success of a bank is that whatever comes here stays here, grows here, and while it's growing, these products which it's selling, which is either loan or investment products or whatever it is, are making money for it. So in a broader term, one would be the client facing, or the selling the products, or selling the bank services to the clients, and the other is taking that money, putting it into investments, mobilizing those loans, and then, so that's the other job. For both these jobs, I think it is recommended, not necessary, because I've seen a lot of engineers make their way through investment banking and stuff. So it's not, but it helps to have a finance, at least an exposure to accounting and finance, and then of course have an MBA degree. The MBA degree or a master's program it's not one thing. It's not just learning that one subject. It's a whole plethora of exposure that you get, the networking that you do, how you present yourself, how do you go into a room and make an impact, because banking is all about impression. Is you're meeting clients all the time, whether it's internal clients or external clients. It doesn't matter. If your personality doesn't have that, then you will not get the job. And I know you cannot fake personality, and a lot of people like either you have it or you don't. How does it? But trust me, a good school can really, if you're a 20, it can move you to a 70. Yes, it cannot give you 100%, because some things are inherent. You cannot dance if you don't know how to dance. But if you really want a job in banking or things that have a client-facing interaction, there are many pieces to it apart from just knowing the subject. And it's every day, huh? It's not like I met you today and then, no, it's every single day and with multiple people at multiple times that will require your attention, that you need to educate and that you need to go with. So, but it's a fascinating field for anybody who has the aptitude towards it. Yeah.
Can you also speak about the back office of banking?
So the back office is what the exposure that I have is from the insurance perspective. I don't have that much exposure in banking because I was always in the front. The back office is, especially in insurance, banking, finance, is always people who deal with a lot of administrative stuff. Okay. Because you're dealing with numbers. So there's going to be, and of course, now there's a lot of, there's a lot of automation in all of these things. So I don't think what we had in the early 2000s is what you're going to have now with the number of people that you're going to have. But there's a lot of people who are sitting in the back office just crunching those numbers, trying to give you extrapolate data or data entry things and stuff like that. I think that is another place that you could get a job.
Right.
But to be a backend and to be a good backend person, you just need precision.
Okay.
If you're not client facing, you just need to be very good at what you're doing. And that is, I think if there's one word, I would say it'd be precision. That's it.
Oh, that's very nicely put. The whole explanation in a very summarized way about how banking jobs can look like. For anyone interested, they can definitely do their own research, but at least they'll have a starting point listening to what you explained on banking. So you also mentioned that this was almost like your end of career in India. And you were thinking of moving to a different country. Now, if you can speak a little bit about which country was it and how was your transition from India to that country? What were the challenges? What were the initial challenges of settling down, finding a job? I'm assuming that you left your job in India and then sought another job in the new country.
Yeah, so we moved to the US, and it was a move that had been impending for a little bit of time. So my husband is in technology and he had studied here, and so I think he had always been wanting to move here. So for him it was a move back. For me it was a move for the first time. It's important to say that until this time, I changed jobs at a drop of a hat. I grew in my career. I had never thought that I was second to anybody. I didn't ever think that there was anything impossible for me to do, whether it's in my career, whether it's in my education, whether it is anything that I was like, I want this job, I'm gonna get it. I want this, I'm gonna get it. I want this house, I'm going. I don't think there was a moment in my life, like even when you asked me, is there a struggle? I don't know, because I never. And then you move to a country where you're not allowed to work. And so US has this, I think it's getting better now, but back then when we came in, you don't have a social security, which is basically your identity in this country. You pretty much nobody if you don't have a social security. So you don't have a social security for the longest time. You can't work. And it's good for somebody who's coming out of a very nice career of aggressively working. It's a nice time, and it set the way for me to start my own family. And so we did have children. So it was a good time. It was also the Lehman Brothers crisis. So really, for a finance person, I wasn't really looking out for a job. But I must say that in 2 years, I love being a mom, and I still enjoy this. It's my favorite thing to do, being a mom. But it hit me that who am I? And fortunately or unfortunately, I landed up in Bay Area. So now Bay Area is again the equivalent of Bangalore or Delhi, the high, uh, you know, expensive place, a lot of jobs, a lot of startups. And so when you come to places like this, and the headquarters of Google, Apple, everything is here, so you can understand the vibe in the city. Even the kids here, they know finance stuff. Because it's in the air. There are like I used to always joke with people like when you loop around in the highways and you take exits around, you'll see a small startup. It's not a place for beauty and like when you go to Europe or something, or where you see the hills. And no, there are hills, yes, but the startups are right in front of it. The backdrop is the hill. If you get to see it in a day, it's good. Otherwise, have your coffee and get going. So I landed up in a city like that. A girl who had so much, education and so much of trying to be who she wants to be. And don't get me wrong. So there's a huge part of me that's very homely, that I can be at home, and I really don't, it's not like I lose my identity or anything. But in a country where you don't have the right to work, it's a choice I would make. I would have made anyways. I wouldn't have worked the first 2 years. I would have enjoyed my baby. But somebody forcing it on you is something that it's like, don't have sugar. Well, I didn't have sugar the whole day. But if you told me you don't have sugar for the next 3 days, I would be like, no, I'm craving sugar. So it's exactly what took over me. By the time my child was 2 years old, I was like, no, I cannot bake anymore. I cannot throw parties anymore. I need to do something. And that's where, if there is a piece of struggle in my life, and you say that, what is that phase of your life? That's where the struggle began.
Okay.
And this happens to anybody who's migrating, because all of your licenses will go down the drain. None of the licenses work. It's very specific to the country. Your degrees, yes, to a certain extent, you will get evaluated. They're going to take the degrees and evaluate the courses, and they're going to tell you, okay, this works, this doesn't work. But you're talking about somebody who spoke in lakhs and crores, going to millions and billions. Right there, as a person who does numbers, right there, you've just moved the basis on this person. The whole thing, and it's as simple as that. How many commas do you have in your zeros? And it might sound very trivial, but it is a change.
Yes.
And so that's how it happened. Yeah.
It must have been difficult, but how did you overcome that phase? How did you figure out your right to work in US, and how did you establish yourself back into the workforce?
I think there was no other way to go. When you hit the pits, I think, by the time it was 2011, I think that there was no other way to go. I needed to get into a master's program, because education is the only thing that I know. I come from a family that's highly educated, and I think that flows into me as well, that I thought that, okay, if I were to change to another country ever, I need a skill that is irreplaceable. That is a skill that nobody can take from me. It should be a very specific, very niche skill that I should have now. And so I think that's where, you see, you pulled up your socks and then you're like, I have to hit the ground running. And then the fight for what courses we can do, where can I go? Again, I'd like to stress that because I'm not a good test taker, there are a lot of colleges that have these, the world has one way of measurement, right? If you knock these boxes, this is where you're successful. And it's math and English most of the times. And so my quants and Anna is very good, but I don't know what happens to me when. Anyway, that's a different story. So then again, what colleges will accept me? What's going to happen? How do I go about it? I don't want to go to any college and do anything and everything. Then I have to redo it again. I don't want to. So I think slowly within 6 to 8 months, I did figure out a master's program again, talking to the advisors here and everything. Here, the professors and everyone, again, they helped a lot in making that decision. Got into there's a law school in San Francisco. It is very, very reputed in the community for taxes, for law, for stuff like that, business law and stuff. So got evaluated and got into that college. So that was the next move. Yeah.
Okay. And just for the benefit of our listeners, what was the entrance exam like? Even though you say you're not good with taking tests, I'm
Yeah.
sure you passed this test and got accepted. What was the entrance?
Yeah, they're very simple. I don't remember giving a very tough exam. And of course, they test you for English and then they evaluate. There's a simple testing, I remember. Nothing very, there was no GMAT. Otherwise, I don't know, my score wouldn't have made the cut. But I think they focus more on law and that's how I got through the college. Nothing really crazy. I had more coursework than I needed in accounting and stuff. So they evaluate for what courses you have back in your country, and then they kind of give you an equivalent. And I think I had more. I think that's probably why they thought. And then I had a good story of my financial pieces. And they also, a lot of US colleges, I think they also go by your story. Like in US, a lot of times, um, the applications are one piece, and then what's your statement of purpose? Who you are, where are you coming from, why you want this, why do you want it badly? I think that must have come through my essay. I mean, there was no chat GPT then, so I must have done something right. And then yeah, got through that. I think that was a good call.
Okay. And not to forget your work ex added to make a
Yeah.
nice story, You
Yeah.
had worked extensively in India with a purpose or with a passion, and that must have showed in your statement of purpose, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yes, work definitely showed up, purpose showed up, why I wanted to pursue tax, it showed up.
Mhm.
It was new, and I don't think I ever thought of taxation as a field before that.
Yeah.
uh,
And ironically, this was the subject you didn't like, tax and law, and you ended up doing that right now. How long was this course?
This course is another story. This course is a 9-month course. Again, I went for speed and I was like, I've done this before and I can do it this time. And so it was a master's program. It was a cohort where you say cohort, it runs doubles up and you do, I think, 12 to 14 courses in a matter of 9 months in human. And I thought like, I'm gonna do it. I've done it before. How does this pan out? So I started with 6 courses in the first semester after having studied for almost a decade, and then I've been domesticated for 2 years or 3 years. And then I'm like, so I go back to school. Apart from, the fact that it's 70 miles away, you take the train, you walk, for a 9 a.m. class, you're leaving at 6. Let's forget all that struggle. I'm just surviving. The coursework was hard. Like I said, it was the first time I was writing a million. It started from there because I don't know. I'm just learning to, and I'm doing, ironically, I still don't have a social security. I'm doing a coursework in tax. I have no exposure. I wish I'd spoken to other people about what this program entails and what a master's program in US entails. Unlike a generic MBA or something that, where you can enter from one field and get into another, a master's program which is specific, a master's in science of a particular subject in US, means you're masters, means when you get into the coursework, you already have above average understanding of a particular subject. And here, I mean, forget about the subject. I know what tax is, I know what, but I have no exposure. I've never even seen my own tax return. Is that I would say that level of knowledge I had moved with. Now I feel very proud, but at that time, the struggle was crazy. Like I always say, the biggest struggle in my life was that phase, just going through it every day. And then, of course, the pieces of guilt of the child, leaving the child for the first, all that, the administrative jargons of converting from a mom to a professional. Let's leave that aside. Let's leave the emotions aside. That's there for everybody. Just surviving the pace of what was happening was very, very hard.
Yeah.
And so by the second semester, I backed out. I said, I can't take 6 more courses because I won't be able to maintain my grades. So then I backed out. And then I took it slow. And then I took it slow. And then I took it slow. I had 3 jobs even before I had finished 8 courses. So the personal skill of communication and letting everybody know was still evident, was still in my personality. As you can see, even though I cross borders, what's inherently inside you, you cannot. But I didn't have the coursework to graduate. Until you don't graduate, you don't get it. So I paced that course out, and a course that could have been done in 9 months was done in 3 years. I had the second baby in the middle, and I finished. And I think that was a very proud moment for me again. Finishing that course, taking it through, did a lot of nonprofit work during that time.
Okay.
Free. So when people tell me, oh, I don't have money, this person's not paying me well, not only was I spending money on the master's program, not only was I doing so many other things, I was working in nonprofits for n number of months, year on year, to just gain the experience. One thing good about being here is the nonprofit is valued here. So the work, somebody writes a nice note for you, it's really, really valued. So everything was tax. I wasn't like doing any charity work. Everything was tax work. And I did it free. And I learned it. I graduated.
That's a very, very inspirational story. And from the sound of it, you struggled a lot
Yeah.
because you had small baby to look after, and then you had another baby while you were doing this course, and the coursework was difficult. So it sounds very difficult, and kudos to you to come through it, even though you took more time, but you finally finished it
Yeah.
and held that degree in your hands to, claim that right to work in US. Because yes, it is not easy if you are on a dependent visa in US. It's really difficult. It's nearly impossible. But what I really take away from this whole story is, your zeal to be back in the workforce. You thought clearly, you took your time, you researched what will work in the line of your existent experience. And then you took your decisions and struggled through it. It
Yeah.
was difficult, but
Yeah.
yet definitely you came out of it with a degree in your hand. So well done for that.
Thank you, because it was something. It was something. I know this is a story of a lot of women who come here,
Yeah.
but it is something.
No,
It
and
is.
for a lot of women who are still struggling to, figure out a job or figure out a way to get back in workforce, or have probably given up already that, I don't want to do something because the path looks very difficult. Now, this is how we are quoting the name of my podcast, Unblurring the Path. I mean, this is one path that was difficult, but it wasn't impossible. And in line with your personality, like you said, nothing was impossible for you till a certain point in time. And this is the first time you thought this is something difficult. But you figured it out, and you figured it out very well. So it's an inspiration for anyone who's looking towards you and listening to this. So thank you for sharing that. It's not easy to even share, I think.
Just
Yeah.
want to add, because you brought up, and I don't know how this will fit in your podcast, is almost every month I get a call, when I receive it, and somebody's looking for a job. They call up, and they're women like me.
Okay.
They've come here, they have the degrees from India, they know the owner is Indian, and they'll tell me, do you have a job? And I'm like, too small to get into, we'll work for free, we'll do. And then I tell them, and that call, I don't hang up on that call. I always give them my spiel because it is very, very close to my heart how the struggle is of a spouse. It could be a man or a woman, whoever
Yeah.
comes on. And it could be any country. Every country has its own. Even Middle East has a lot of stringent guidelines. Both the countries that I've lived in away from India, they have very stringent guidelines. So one is to give up. A lot of my friends are like, oh God, who's, and by the time you get your citizenship and stuff, you're like, I've never worked here.
Yeah.
I don't want to work anymore. There's no need. But then there's another side that if you really want, you don't give up here. One thing I have learned from this country, if you work hard in your capacity where you're like, oh my God, this is the hardest I can work. Beyond this, I don't think I have you will get it. There is no way. This is the beauty of this capitalist economy, is that you work hard and it will kill you, but you will make it. So if you have that kind of energy, if you have that kind of zeal, and you have that kind of desire and the frustration.
Yes.
I think in my 2.0 version of being in US, the frustration and anger of not being able to be where I am played such a big part. And so even with kids, where I'd like to, put it back to them, where sometimes when they're doing a English or math or something and they're like, I can't get it. I can't get it. Don't worry. You are getting somewhere.
Yes.
There is a fine line between I don't know to I know now. And you cannot give up. You just have to, and it's with everything in life.
Yes.
Of course, immigration is a beast. It's in the talks every day, especially US immigration. But if you want something, you have frustration, cherish it.
Yeah.
Cherish it and push it. Yeah.
Yes. And that's a very important point you made with respect to even kids, that I don't know. Something very, very trivial, but very important has been taught in my daughter's school, which is add a yet at the end. I don't know it yet.
Yes.
And that gives you the power to push yourself to the point where you say, I know it.
I know. Yeah.
And that is so powerful. That 1 3-lettered word can add so much value to your mental zeal, that push yourself, take yourself there where you want to.
Absolutely.
So amazing anecdote. So Pooja, next, what did you do after getting that degree in your hand?
As soon as I got the degree, there is this movie called In Pursuit of Happiness. Have you seen it?
Yeah, love it.
I want every child to see it.
Yes.
Every child should watch that movie, because in different phases of your life, you will value. So there is a dance that the guy does when he gets his job.
My God.
I think I cry and cry when I see that. I felt exactly like him when I got my first job. As I exited the college in 3 years, I had 5 jobs. I chose the job which was 2 miles away from my house because I had a baby, my second born. I wanted to come and see him every 2-3 hours. It never happened that I did, but it was just 2 miles. See, that's how women think, right?
So important.
I didn't choose a job 70 miles in the financial district in San Francisco, which would have been the best thing for me. I chose a job in the suburbs, which is close to my house. So we think differently, and that's okay as long as we're getting where we want. Now, this time, I'm on the other side as I enter the workforce. I'm not 22. I am now, I think, 30, early 30s, 31, something. Okay. So again, now, every time you achieve something, you're like, okay, this is what I want to achieve. And after this, life is going to be amazing. It's a better. The problem is when you go there and you achieve that piece, the next struggle starts.
Okay.
So here I am, where I'm like, okay, I am in public accounting. This is where I want it to be. So again, accounting has 2 parts. There's, as you move, there's public accounting and then there's private accounting. Okay. Private accounting is what, like any company, like let's say you have Target. Target has employees that does their accounting, their finance within Target and sitting there. And then there's public accounting, which does accounting and taxes for the public. That means it'll do the accounting for down the street, a guy down the street. It'll do it for the nonprofit. It'll do it for the new startup on the street. So public accounting is all kind of clients. Private accounting is in-house accounting. And so public accounting is very appealing to people who graduate out of schools. It's again very client facing because you're dealing with. So my first job again was with BDO. It's one of, again, it's a multinational. I was dealing with international cross border taxation. That was my first job. Very intense, very technical, very detail oriented, lot of precision required, no client facing. So the first few years in public accounting, you will not see the clients, you will not meet the clients. But as a personal struggle, you're allowed to, sleep in. You're required to sleep in. You're required to work during weekends, weeknights. There are showers. If I need to explain this to a layman, with consulting, accounting, tax, all these kind of things, they're beautiful bathrooms. They are meant to be used. Food is unlimited. It's provided. It's amazing. You can order the most gourmet lunches and dinners. It is by the company. You will be given transportation to go late. They will chauffeur you off if you need to. You need to stay at work.
Okay.
Okay. Now, by the time people are my age, when I entered the workforce, they're already senior managers, partners. They're already in that phase where they don't have to sleep at work. They do end up at certain times of the year, but not throughout the year. So now I was on a personal level, I was at where a mid-level person should be, or higher than mid-level. But professionally, I'm with the newbies.
Okay.
22-year-olds, right? And that's how 22, 23-year-olds. And so now the competition for you to get promoted is with that person who can sleep in. So that's where the struggle began. And then you understand that in different phases of life, you have to take different strategies. What works for one phase of life will not work for the other phase of life. And there is no standard path for success. Even though we're talking about how to choose subjects and how to choose a good college and how to do, and yes, there's a natural progression, if I may say, to be successful in a particular field. There's no standardized way of doing it. And so you have to carve your own way out. You have to, like you said, unblur your own path. You keep on like putting the light. Okay, this is looking too dark. I have to light this up. And so the first 2 years again are very hard just to survive, just to kind of hit the ground, learn about taxation. Again, too many pieces. Learn about what the work culture in US is. Tax is very, one thing is you master the subject in the notebooks, and then the other is actually doing it. It's like you're performing surgery now. Now show me that now you're a doctor. Show me now cut this person. And you're like, okay, this is very simple. I know how to do this, but no, the organ is here, the organ is there, this one's here, that one's there, and tax is very complicated. For the first time, I'm like, in the books, they said this was a question, and the answer was one. This was like, this is all over the place. And so one was, of course, understanding subject. The other was just getting amalgamated into the society here, how the workforce is, and you're also working with kids. You're working with old people. It was a fun 2 years. Until then, steep learning curve. Inside, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't think I'm learning anything. But when I came out of those 2 years, I was chiseled a bit. Not fully chiseled, but I was chiseled a bit. And then I went into a smaller firm because I just realized that I can't keep up with the pace. And then here also, I did change a lot of firms. Tax is very seasonal. You have peaks and then you have lows. Then you have peaks, then you have big, it's with the financial year. And when the filing comes in, of course, there's work throughout the year, it trickles down, but then there are phases in the year you're working crazy hours.
Okay.
So slowed it down, smaller firms, and as the family grew. And I did that for 8, 9 years.
Okay.
And then COVID hit.
Yes. How can we forget that?
So one beast after the other, right? So then COVID hits, and most of the tax professionals thought that they're going to lose jobs because before that time, nobody has not seen a client, right? Or even if you are doing big company returns and you're still dealing with people, how will it work when the offices are shut down? And so we start overworking.
Yeah.
You work 18 to 20 hours a day, and That's what I started doing. COVID was it didn't end. My days didn't end during COVID. I was working for a small CPA firm. A lot of things happened during COVID. A lot of financial pieces changed. A lot of government policies changed. A lot of learning during that time. A lot of tax policies changed. So a lot of things were happening. A lot of learning. Yeah, I think, and then that's the segue into the next segment. I think probably my final segment.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, what happened in COVID that prompted you to think into your next phase of life, which I think is setting up your own firm?
Yeah, so COVID, the working hours were getting very long, and there's a story behind this. So during COVID, we all started working from home. So my husband and I, for the first time in I don't know 15 years maybe, we shared an office. It was a small 600 square feet room, and we were sharing an office. When he works, he doesn't talk. Like there are days when he comes back from work, he's like, "You're the first person I'm talking to." When I work, I only talk, and then I do my work, then I talk, and that's my work. So for the first time, he saw me talking to clients, and I mean, it was always my dad's dream that we start up a firm, and my husband too, that we should start something, and eventually that's what we would do. But when he saw me speaking to clients, and he said, "You speak with so much knowledge and with so much passion about something that is so boring, right? Why are you not doing it for yourself? I always thought that you went to work and you just had fun and came back." I was like, "Seriously? Like, what do you mean? This is my job." He's like, "You take so much time with every client, you tell them what to do, and you're speaking with so much intuition and passion. Why are you doing it for other people?"
Yeah.
And at that time, I think I just brushed it off. I think the men in my life have really, my dad, my husband, they kind of move me into places which is discomforting, right? Because otherwise everything is status quo. So I said, "You know what, just now my career is beginning to look like it's stable, doing well. I'm the go-to person for this." And he says, "You're limiting yourself. You understand that?" And, and that's it. And that's it. And then we go through COVID, right? After a year, I got into, again, a very big company here. I became a tax manager. I think as a soul, in my soul, I had achieved what I wanted to achieve. It was
Okay.
a $10 billion company. I was a tax manager there. I was sitting there, and with my heart satiated with that role, I'm like, this is where I want to be. This is the brand I wanted. This is the company. This is what I want it to be. And like they say, destiny will again twist the tail for you. I thought caregiving was required at that time. Again, like many phases in my life where caregiving has taken a huge role. I thought when I watched my kids during COVID in front of me, I realized that there are pieces that I'm missing because I'm the last parent to pick them up and the first parent to drop them off. And there are pieces that, and I'm that mom. Let me not make judgment of what decisions women take or men take. It's not about gender. It's not about, it's I want it that way. And so I thought that if I start something of my own and it's COVID, if it doesn't work, it's fine. I can always make a story that I started my own, it failed, but I want to spend more time with kids. And that is exactly why it happened. I did not want to commute once, we were called back to work. It was about 80 miles one way. So it took 3 hours to go to that very fancy job that I'd got. And I thought, let me do it in a small way. If I get a few clients, it'll be nice. I'll have a story to tell that I started. We don't have any entrepreneurs in our family. We do have some now, but it's usually a family that's most educational. We don't know how to ask for money, and we don't know how to think of everything like you give me this and I'll give you that. So that business mindedness is not there. Finance is there. So it took me a while to get to tell somebody, "Hey, I need X amount of dollars for what I just told you.
Right.
This is tax advice. This is advisory." And I want to, because initially in the calls, people would be at home and they're like, "Did you not just tell him everything?" I'm like, "Yeah, he needed to." You're like, "This is tax advice. You can charge him for this." I'm like, "How do I ask?"
I know.
So, so it began from there, and by the grace of God, and I think immense grace, a lot of grace from my father, who's no more. I think it's all thanks to him. company is named after the name he wanted when he was retiring. He wanted to start a company like that. So with no thought, I just launched the same name. I think it's his grace that we're doing well. I'm at a phase where I'm like, should I expand? Should I hire more people? Should I move into another firm, in a bigger firm, get merged with them? What should I do? Should I get this? And these are amazing problems to have for someone who thought asking somebody for $500 was wrong. It was like, no, how can I? So it is a journey that is also not of the subject matter of finance, of learning, of it's also self journey of understanding that this was there in me and that this was my calling, and that doing things at my own pace, doing now that I'm, I have two growing up kids, still not grown up, but it gives me great joy that I'm home when they're home. It doesn't matter to them. It gives me joy.
And we do that for ourselves, right?
Yeah, it gives me joy. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course. So you have explained how it happened, but what I want also to understand is what are the steps to setting up your own company? Yeah, because as an entrepreneur, subject matter expertise is one part of it, which you had, and that's why you've worked in fancy organizations. You've paved your way throughout your career.
Mm-hmm.
But what is it that you do to set up your own firm? What kind of skill sets you need to, pull yourself through that, to see yourself on the other side, working in your own firm, getting clients? Of course, asking money was one of the biggest challenges, like you pointed. But, if you can speak about these nitty gritties, anyone who's thinking, everyone gets ideas. I have been sitting on multiple ideas for last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Taking that first step sometimes is the hardest.
Mhm.
And then after you take your first step, all the operational activities around it, those are some of the difficult things that you do to finally have a firm in name and clients to work with. So if you can walk us through that, that would be very helpful.
Okay, this is a layered question. So first is any business in US, especially something this technical, you need a license. So again, you have to go through the licensing requirements and stuff. Setting up a business is not hard in terms of the technical aspect of it. You go to a professional, they'll set up the business for you based on I do it all the time. I do it a lot for women entrepreneurs. A lot of people come to me and I help them through, just like you're saying. I think the most important thing in a business, and if you're coming from a job and then going into business, is the first year. If you are able to pass through that first year, because you will not have the income that you had, you'll not have the work the way it was. Letting go of money that comes to you bi-weekly or monthly or whatever way, it'll shake you, because you have, whether you work or not, you went on a vacation, whatever happened, you have money coming in, right? So that once that money stops, especially for people who are professionals and then they move into their own business, that's one of the biggest setbacks. You have to be patient, and you have to, I think, in that time where you don't have that kind of work, you have to continuously work your brain to see what is it that's taking you from here to just making your own salary. Forget about making X amount of money and, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. No. What is it that will take you from this point to this point and just make the salary that you were making? And so you will come up with marketing ideas. You will come up with things you thought that your manager didn't let you do and you should have done it this way. So this is your time now. Do it now is the time. And creativity is a big piece of who I am. I always thought, what am I doing in this field of, taxation that is like set in space? But it's not. I think accounting and tax and finance are some of the most creative things that you can do, because you have the guidelines and everything. But how creatively, when a client comes to you and gives you these numbers and says, can you work this for me? How are you able to stay within the legislation and the law and then do it for them? And that becomes your niche, right? So in my field, I have designed the firm in such a manner that it becomes the firm to plan in advance rather than run and do some forms and data entry and no, you plan in advance. You're told in advance. We work out. We have meetings. I guide you through the ways you can maximize opportunities with tax. And that very much goes with my own personality. I'll look at everything way in advance, way before anybody sees it. And I plan so that trickles into my firm. That will trickle into the clients you attract.
Right.
A guy who's a last minute guy is not my client. I don't
Okay.
have clients the guy who takes respect to look at money and says, I made this much money, Pooja. Looks at it with the love because it is my profession. It is what I do. I look at taxes with a lot of passion. If you are that person who's going to, so you have to figure out what you bring to the table that will be your niche in that business, in that segment,
All right.
and change the processes. And throughout the time where you're not making that kind of money or you're not getting where you want to be, your mind has to be constantly working. And the mind, whatever ideas you have, they have to be executed.
Okay.
And just sits here, no.
Fail fast.
Spend
Yeah.
money. You'll spend money. You'll
Yeah.
spend money. You'll waste money. You'll be like, oh my God, I'd spend this much. Nothing. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. This, you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Do this.
That's
So
powerful.
it will happen. And over a period of time, you will be in a space where you're like, oh, okay, now how much do I want to expand? You will be there. Yeah.
So thank you, Pooja. It's very powerful the way you have set up your company. And especially after listening to the entire story, it seems like a dream come true. And all the best for whatever you're doing in your company and the clients that you're working with. All the best for that. This kind of brings us to unraveling the journey that you've had, but it's not the end
Yeah.
of the podcast. So let me start by asking you some short questions, so to fill if we have missed something through the talk that we've had. So my first question would be, if you had to start over today, would you do the same thing that you've done?
Yeah. I would have done it earlier in my career. I would have done a master's in tax program way earlier. Yeah, but I've done the same thing. Yeah.
What is that one thing that you wish someone would have told you when you were 20?
Don't be so hard on yourself. Like, don't judge yourself so much. Like, life has so much more to offer, and you always have a second chance.
Right. And you've proven it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. What's the most rewarding part of your profession today?
When the clients call me, even when they have to take a vacation or they have to buy a car, I love the dependency. I also get irritated because sometimes it's like it's for everything, right? Some of the clients will call me even when they want to sell something, sell something. They want to send their kids. They want to plan their education. It's really nice that I am a part of their financial decisions, just like I used to be back at home as a kid.
Wow. Life's a full circle, isn't it?
It's a full circle, right? You're a part of people's daily choices. So yeah, I like that. It's sometimes too much, but I like it.
Amazing. You have switched many companies throughout in India as well as in US. Do you think switching helped you, or do you envision that sticking to one or two or three companies at max would have helped you better? If you ever think on this, what are your thoughts?
I'm not that person who can stay in a company for 10 years.
Okay, so it's very personal. It's
It's
personality
a
based.
personal choice.
Yeah.
I think I grew very fast. I like fast paced environments. I like change. And I think that's why I'm flourishing as an entrepreneur, because no 2 days look the same. No two clients are the same. Every day is a new story. Every day is a new complication. And I think that's what I like. So I don't think I'd like to, even if I had to do it again, I would have done the same.
Okay, wonderful. What is the most essential skill in your profession that has helped you throughout?
Communication. To be able to tell a client the way it is in a layman's language.
Got it. Like, one book that has influenced you the most?
So many, so many. Oh my God, I wish you had asked me before. Right now, I've just read one, and it's Japanese Art of Living that I really liked. Otherwise, many, I forget the names, but it's called Ikigai. I'm reading it now. I've read it 2, 3 times. I love writing on the book and hearting everything and circling, but I think it's a beautiful book.
Yeah, it is
Something
indeed.
that the kids should also read.
Of
Yes.
course. Yes. Yes. There's a Ikigai for teens if you want to buy it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's very nice.
One thing every student or professional should know about your profession.
That being in finance is not just about numbers. It's a lot of other pieces. So if you're good in math, it's great. But finance is also about intuition. Finance is also about creativity. So Yeah, I think that's what I want them to know.
Amazing. Your career in one word.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting that word. It's not an appropriate word to put in here. Uh, like a waterfall. I don't know. It's always flowing. It's always flowing. Water might be less and it'll be thinner. It's like a waterfall, like a long, big waterfall, gushing waterfall at this point in time.
Brilliant. Brilliantly put. And actually, when you said waterfall, I could actually imagine your career journey as a waterfall, the way you have described it. Taking shape wherever there were situations, sometimes as a stream, sometimes as, like you said, gushing waterfall at this point. And I can totally imagine. So, very well put, I would say.
Yeah.
One moment in your career that you'll never forget.
When I quit my first job.
And why is that?
There were 3 floors in ING. The guy who had interviewed me, remember the guy who put his head down?
Yeah, yeah.
He got very fond of me. By the time I left, I was probably his favorite employee. He's still on my LinkedIn. He called all the 3 floors. There was 250 or more employees. And you have to remember I'm 23 because that's a very beautiful image of myself. And he called everybody and it was my farewell. And he said, she came, she conquered, and she left.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah.
And I can actually imagine how you must have felt.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
It was big. I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm getting emotional listening to it. So,
Yeah, it was it was I don't think I've left so many companies. I've got farewells and stuff, but I haven't got a farewell like that where there was so much respect for the youngest employee.
And also shows the culture of the company to a great
Yeah,
extent,
yeah, yeah,
which to a great extent also depends on the manager or the boss or,
yeah,
but it's beautiful. As
yeah,
simple as that. Yeah.
yeah.
What is the most misunderstood thing about your profession?
Uh, that it's boring.
Okay.
Anytime I tell anybody I do taxes, they look at me and they're like, "You, what are you doing in taxes? It's not that boring." That's what.
Beautiful. What is your guilty pleasure after a long day of work?
One martini, one piece of tres leche cake. I was just telling my trainer yesterday, like, I think I have to stop doing that. I'm so healthy throughout the year. And there are months that I binge and eat. That is the peril of my profession. The stress is so high at certain times in the year. You cannot not do unhealthy things. It just happens.
Okay. A quote or a mantra you live by?
This point, it's different in different phases of life. But at this point, I'd say Rumi's quote, right? What you seek is seeking you.
Yes.
It's a very common quote, but I think it's so beautiful in terms of what you want is what you're going to get. It's all this manifestation thing that everybody's now talking about. It's all my life has been about that. You ask and it shall be given, right?
Yeah.
I think at this point in time, I feel that quote.
Perfect. Advice to anyone that is considering your career.
You have to have a lot of grit, have a lot of perseverance, and you have to get into good colleges because finance is all about getting that, foot in the door. It's not like you can do it from anywhere and then you need to get into a good branded college or university. That will make things so much easier for you. So, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And with that, Pooja, we come to the end of this podcast. It was wonderful having you here. The journey has been nothing short of inspirational. And I have learned myself so many things, so many aspects of the finance world,
Yeah.
of resilience, of struggles, and of successfully coming out of them. Really thoroughly enjoyed having you. And I hope you also had fun reminiscing your journey with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I have this imposter syndrome that I don't want to be. So thank you for pushing me and having me on this podcast. I hope it helps some kids and always open for questions from any kid who wants to learn more about my field. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an energy filled conversation. What I find truly fascinating about Pooja's journey is how her career has consistently evolved with life. From sitting beside her father at the age of 6, scanning the economic times for stock prices, to studying commerce and finance, to building a career in banking across organizations, and then moving countries, pausing her career, and reinventing herself through a master's in tax and law. in the United States. Her story reminds us that careers can be like a waterfall, always flowing, changing direction, and finding new path. What also stood out is that careers in finance or tax are not just about numbers. They require communication, creativity, and most importantly, building trust with people who rely on your advice for some of their biggest financial decisions. For students listening today, Pooja's journey shows that sometimes the subjects that you find boring in college can later become the very field in which you thrive. And for adults listening, it is a reminder that it is never too late to start again, learn something new, and build a career that fits the life you want to live. If you have enjoyed this episode of Unblur the Path, please share it with at least one student or parent who may benefit from hearing a real career journey. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss on future conversations where we will explore the good, the bad, and the ugly of different careers, helping young people make better, informed decisions. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep unblurring the path.